Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Apa kabarnya teman-teman? Balik lagi di kajian online. Malam ini teman-teman kita bakal sama-sama menyaksikan dan juga menyimak wawancara Presiden terpilih Republik Indonesia dengan salah satu media asal Qatar yaitu Al Jazeera. Dalam penyampaiannya Pak Prabowo ini menyampaikan berbagai kontroversi yang dipertanyakan oleh dunia barat. Salah satunya terkait isu pelanggaran HAM, isu tentang demokrasi Indonesia yang disebut-sebut melemah dan juga beberapa poin-poin penting terkait kerjasama dan juga arah politik dirinya saat memimpin Indonesia. Nah teman-teman, durasinya cukup panjang, hampir 30 menit dan mungkin nanti saya akan selangi untuk komentator. Ini kenapa nanti bakal saya selangi dengan komentator karena untuk menghindari banned ya dari pihak YouTube. Kalau misalnya kita full tidak ada interaksi dengan audiens, dengan para viewers kita, nanti videonya bukan termasuk reaction tapi takutnya nanti masuknya ke re-upload. Jadi nanti mungkin kita bakal kasih aba-aba saat saya menjeda videonya untuk memberikan komentator. Jadi nanti teman-teman masih bisa untuk mengskipnya ke menit berapa komentar saya terkait video ini. Oke teman-teman, kita mending langsung saja mulai simak. Ini video wawancara eksklusif Presiden terpilih Prabowo Subianto bersama media asal Qatar Al Jazeera. Yuk simak bersama-sama.
Senang bisa berbicara lagi dengan Bapak Prabowo. Let's begin with talking about the election. A landslide victory for you, almost 60% of the votes, victory in
sudah kita siapkan ya teman-teman ini subtitlenya, mudah-mudahan subtitlenya bisa dimengerti, bisa membantu ya buat teman-teman semua memahami apa yang dikatakan oleh para
I think a combination of factors, maybe precisely because I ran twice before. I think my message, my narrative, my principles reached the people. And this time, of course, I have to say that I felt that I basically became part of the incumbent team. So I think that also was a great factor.
That's something that many observers have talked about, and they've called it this Jokowi effect, the effect of your perceived closeness with the president and how that may have boosted your chances. What do you make of that?
Well, if you know, President Joko Widodo has now 83% favorable rating in the public opinion polls. And of course, the people felt his commitment to bring betterment to the people's conditions, especially the poor. So, yes, I think that Jokowi effect really helped me also.
You, sir, have run against President Jokowi twice. You were political rivals. Was there a genuine change of mind on your part that allowed you to work more closely with him?
You know, traditionally.
Oke teman-teman, mohon maaf, ini jeda untuk pertama. Saya akan mengkomentari topik pertama yang dibahas antara Pak Prabowo dan juga reporter dari Al Jazeera. Yang pertama dibahas adalah terkait pengaruh Pak Jokowi dalam kemenangan Prabowo Subianto di Pilpres 2024. Seperti kita ketahui, Pak Prabowo secara tidak langsung disupport penuh oleh Pak Prabowo melalui pencalonan anak sulungnya yaitu Gibran Rakabuming Raka sebagai wakil presiden yang mendampingi Pak Prabowo. Di sini pihak barat, teman-teman, sangat menaruh curiga dan juga memberikan catatan-catatan terkait kemenangan Pak Prabowo yang disebut-sebut sangat kontroversial karena ada campur tangan pemerintah sebelumnya terhadap kemenangan Pak Prabowo. Di sini Pak Prabowo menjawab, teman-teman, tidak menutup mata, tidak menghapuskan jasa-jasa Pak Jokowi atas kemenangan. Jadi Pak Prabowo ini mengatakan bahwa memang kemenangan saya ini salah satunya karena faktor Jokowi efek. Kenapa ini Pak Prabowo ini mengatakan seperti itu? Karena hampir 82 hingga 83% rakyat di Indonesia masih mencintai Pak Jokowi. Sehingga kedekatan Pak Prabowo dan juga Pak Jokowi ini memang sangat berpengaruh, cukup berpengaruh untuk kemenangannya. Oke teman-teman, itu ulasan yang pertama. Kita lanjut lagi, ini mendengarkan juga menyimak pernyataan dari Pak Prabowo.
In Indonesian politics, the winner wants to make sure that his rival doesn't ever re-emerge, right? But this time, I think he understood that I was committed to the betterment of the Indonesian people, especially the poor. And I think basically, which I found out later, he does have the same values as I do.
What are those values?
I think the value as a son of Indonesia, we want our people to live a dignified life, and poverty is not dignified. An independent country, their people must live with the basics. They cannot live in poverty.
We'll talk about poverty in a moment.
Yeah.
You mentioned sons of Indonesia, and of course, one son who has really been in focus during this whole campaign is your running mate, Gibran Rakabuming Raka,
Yes.
the country's next vice president. A controversial pick, certainly in the early stages of the campaign. What does he bring to the table, apart from being President Joko Widodo's son?
We cannot take the fact that he's a son of President Jokowi as not an important factor. But Jokowi has 82% favorable rating, right?
Is there a quality that the new vice president will bring to the job? Perhaps his youth might be a positive factor.
I think that's also a very important factor. As you know, I think it's more than 52% of our voters are young.
Yes, more than 63 million between 17 and 30.
Right.
In a three-candidate race, what was the main challenge in getting your message across to those young voters?
I think I had the advantage because, the young, they're more concerned about jobs because that's their future. They're concerned about education. They're concerned about jobs. They're concerned about equal opportunities.
So would you dispute, perhaps there were some criticisms of your campaign that there were some gimmicks with the cartoons and the dances, that it actually wasn't about that, it was about the substance that appealed to young people?
Oh, gimmicks are gimmicks, right? I mean, you can have gimmicks and be a clown, right? You can dance all you want and you become a buffoon, or you become... First, I think, is the message. And the young, in this age of social media, the information revolution, they get on very fast. And I think one thing about the young, they see very fast who is genuine and who is acting. So I think I got the advantage there because,
The promises of your potential policies rather than the style of the campaign.
Yeah, not only promises, they see promises make sense or not, right? Promises make sense, promises solve problems or not. I think that's the...
There was also a criticism made during campaign season, before election day, that perhaps your team had an unfair advantage by means of support from the state, by means of potential misuse of social aid. That was something that your opponents repeated, but also some civil society organizations. Does that affect how you perceive the victory in any way at all?
Well, accusations are easily made, but when the scrutiny is done correctly, intensively, I mean, you will find out those accusations are very empty and very, I would say, very selfish accusations.
So you
right?
deny there was any conversation about this use of social aid during campaign season?
Social aid is there in our budget.
Yes.
for many, many years, right? It was approved by all parties in parliament. So what? And then, can you imagine about this aid, social assistance, right? By the way, outside Indonesia, we have a large community of Indonesians living abroad. Malaysia, Hong Kong, Singapore, the Middle East. And I won by 63%, and there was not one social assistance package sent. And I won by 63%, right? And all these social assistance were given in all the provinces, and I lost in 2 of them.
Ya teman-teman, mohon maaf lagi, ini di segmen yang kedua. Ini reporter dari Al Jazeera ini menanyakan terkait isu kemenangan Pak Prabowo yang dipengaruhi oleh faktor bansos, di mana Pak Prabowo ini diuntungkan karena bisa melakukan bagi-bagi bansos. Ya, Pak Jokowi kemana Pak Jokowi melakukan kunjungan kan selalu bagi-bagi bansos. Nah, pihak Barat ini menuding bahwa ada praktek uang, ada politisasi uang di sini, tetapi di sini Pak Prabowo menjawab dengan sangat baik, di mana Pak Prabowo menyatakan bahwa bansos yang diberikan kepada masyarakat telah disetujui oleh DPR dan juga telah mematuhi semua perundang-undangan di dalam negeri di Indonesia. Sedangkan Pak Prabowo juga menyatakan ini para pendukungnya di luar negeri, di Hong Kong, Singapura, dan juga di beberapa negara yang lain yang tidak mendapatkan bansos, tetapi Pak Prabowo tetap mendapatkan suara mayoritas bahkan hingga 63%. Tetapi ada juga di 2 provinsi ya seperti Aceh dan Sumbar, kalau nggak salah Pak Prabowo di sana kalah. Kendati pun di sana juga diberikan bansos. Jadi ini jawaban yang cukup baik ya teman-teman, sangat baik dari Pak Prabowo untuk menepis isu bahwa Pak Prabowo ini memanfaatkan bansos untuk mendulang suara. Karena diberikan atau tidak diberikan memang rakyat itu lebih cenderung untuk memilih sosok Pak Prabowo. Oke teman-teman, mohon maaf untuk yang kedua, kita lanjut lagi video pernyataan atau video wawancara Pak Prabowo.
Would you be looking to work with the people who opposed you in the election?
I am willing to work with anybody for the good of the country.
Let's talk about some of the policies that we can expect. And one of the key projects initiated by President Joko Widodo is this new capital project in East Kalimantan. Does this project have your full 100% support?
This idea of moving the capital was actually for many, many years, since even our first president, President Sukarno. And there was always this move that this capital should be more central position, and also that we have problems actually in Jakarta. Jakarta is, I think, already way beyond the capacity of the area to support a population of 20-25 million people. We have to invest more to save Jakarta.
How will you address the concerns about how this project may affect the indigenous communities? There are some NGOs that estimate some 20,000 indigenous people may have to be relocated to make way for infrastructure for the capital. What can be done for them?
The interest, the security, and the future of all the indigenous people are highest priority in my view. We have to protect them. We have to secure their livelihood, and we have to do a lot of planning and research that we do not displace too many people. And if we do, we must compensate, and we have to guarantee their well-being.
Because this is a theme that comes up not only in terms of the new capital, but whenever there are major development projects, for example, the Mandalika Circuit, Lombok, there are indigenous communities who feel they don't receive the benefits of these major infrastructure.
Yeah, I would like to repeat that in my life, in my commitment, that I will defend the interests of my people, indigenous people included. Mm-hmm. We will defend their my strongest support are from those who are weak,
You've proposed many strategies to help low-income households in particular, but a key promise made during the campaign, and in fact the one that was all over the posters in the lead up to the election, was this free lunch program for school children. Some more than 80 million people will receive this free lunch and free milk. What is the reason that that program
actually,
is needed?
I think free meal program is very urgent, and we have to take urgent measures. And the children of Indonesia are our future. I think this is very strategic for the future of Indonesia.
The cost has been raised as a potential barrier that in the first year this could cost perhaps $7 billion. I understand the government is already looking at how to fund this program, but to you that's not a concern?
To me, that's not a concern. I've studied the problems. I've studied where we can save and where we can reallocate. I'm very convinced.
The aim of this project is to improve the quality of education that Indonesian children receive. What do you see as the main...
Not only to help them in their health, in their fitness. You know, the stunting of Indonesia children is very, I would say, very saddening.
So this program is the intersection of health, education, a variety of aims. But one aim...
The survival of the future of Indonesia. You know, we have started pilot projects. Already 3 months, we have started, not many, but we started in East Indonesia, we started in Kalimantan. And everybody reports after 2-3 months, the children are more lively, attendance rate increase. You know, nowadays they know when they come to school there's lunch or there's a meal. So we are very optimistic about it.
Let's take a look at the situation in...
Ya teman-teman, mohon maaf ini jeda untuk yang ketiga. Kali ini reporter dari Al Jazeera ini menanyakan terkait program makan siang gratis yang menjadi salah satu program unggulan Prabowo Gibran di Pilpres 2024 yang lalu. Di sini sang reporter menanyakan apa manfaat program makan siang gratis, apakah ini bisa berhubungan langsung meningkatkan kualitas pendidikan atau tidak. Nah, jawaban Pak Prabowo ini sangat bagus teman-teman, diawali dengan isu permasalahan stunting di Indonesia yang memang cukup besar teman-teman ya, cukup marak juga stunting, kekurangan gizi, gagal tumbuh anak, dikarenakan salah satunya adalah faktor gizi yang kurang. Nah teman-teman, dengan adanya program makan siang gratis ini yang telah dijalankan simulasinya selama 2 hingga 3 bulan di beberapa daerah, ternyata anak-anak itu kehadirannya itu melonjak. Jadi anak-anak yang dulu mungkin malas untuk sekolah karena ada makan siang gratis, mereka itu bersemangat. Mereka lebih bersemangat untuk belajar karena mendapatkan asupan nutrisi gizi yang cocok ya, yang pas untuk kebutuhan mereka dalam belajar. Jadi itu teman-teman ya sangat bagus, di mana pendidikannya bisa menunjang, kesehatannya juga bisa terjamin, dan intinya ke depannya goalnya itu adalah menjaga masa depan Indonesia dari yang akan diteruskan oleh anak-anak muda di Indonesia, yaitu para pelajar. Oke teman-teman, mohon maaf ini jeda yang ketiga, kita bakal lanjut lagi teman-teman.
Eastern Indonesia, in Papua, we have seen incidents of torture, human rights abuses carried out by security forces against indigenous Papuans. There was a recent incident where a man was put in a barrel and tortured by security personnel. When you see those incidents, what is your reaction?
You know, we are the 4th largest population in the world. We are the size of Europe, right? We have many incidents, I'm sure. There are violations. But you compare what's happening in many parts of the world, you know. I'm not defending it. We have taken, I think our record, we have taken measures to punish our security forces who have violated. But if you compare with the size of Indonesia, with the size of the population...
The incidents seem to be concentrated, though, in Papua rather than throughout the country.
How do you know that? Have you been there? Why didn't you go there?
Well, it's very difficult actually for foreign media to enter Papua.
You talk Papua as if I'm not defending all incidents. We will deal with seriously, but you know your question a bit one-sided. Why don't you open the YouTube on the channels of these so-called Papua independence movement? On their channel, you can see how they mistreat their own people.
So would that be ensuring the security of the situation in Papua? How can that be done?
Look, Indonesia is not only Papua. We will ensure security all over Indonesia, right? And our approach is always to negotiate. You know, these terrorists who attack their own people, who attack schools, burn, kill civilians. You talk about one incident.
Yes.
Do you know that they killed workers on the road?
Yes, I know that there are.
But
many
you didn't
sides
ask about
to
it. How many workers they killed? Unarmed civilian workers. How many workers they killed? 2, 3, 4?
There have been many incidents. There have been many incidents.
Yeah, what
of
I'm saying
targeting
is,
civilians.
they carry out acts of terrorism. They what do you call it? Took a hostage, which they have not released, an unarmed foreign civilian, right?
Yes,
Where is the indignation from the NGOs, from the foreign press? No.
I think perhaps the indignation is for both sides, just for people to live safely, Mr. President-elect. And
Oh yeah, we will secure the safety of our people. They've been attacking civilians many, many times.
There is
And you guys don't report that.
well, we try to report the full story.
It's there.
Ya teman-teman, karena durasinya cukup panjang, nanti di segmen terakhir kita bakal bikinkan di video selanjutnya. Saya ingin mengulas sedikit teman-teman terkait pernyataan terakhir yang disampaikan oleh reporter dari Al Jazeera ini terkait isu HAM di Papua, di mana ini media-media Barat ini hanya menyoroti satu insiden yang terjadi, di mana insiden-insiden yang lain mereka itu serasa tutup mata saat misalnya kelompok Papua bersenjata ini, OPM ini ya, KKB ini, kelompok kriminal bersenjata, teroris ini melakukan penyerangan terhadap rumah-rumah ibadah, terhadap rumah-rumah warga, terhadap sekolah, membakar fasilitas umum. Media-media Barat ini serasa tutup mata. Tapi ketika pasukan Indonesia dikerahkan untuk mengamankan situasi, ini tiba-tiba para pembela HAM ini langsung bersuara paling keras. Jadi di sini saya sangat suka sekali dengan jawaban Pak Prabowo yang sangat simpel, di mana Pak Prabowo menyebut bahwa Anda jangan melihat satu kejadian ini hanya dalam satu kejadian. Lihatlah kejadian-kejadian yang lain yang telah terbukti bahwa mereka terdahulu yang menyerang kami. Kami hanya bertahan, kami hanya mempertahankan rakyat kami. Ya teman-teman, itu video wawancara di segmen yang pertama ya, atau part yang pertama. Insya Allah kita bakal lanjut lagi di part kedua. Saya akan bikinkan videonya. Terima kasih teman-teman. Sebelumnya saya ucapkan terima kasih sudah menemani saya nonton video Pak Prabowo, wawancara eksklusif dengan artikel Al Jazeera ya. Sekali lagi terima kasih teman-teman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.